Well, we have seen the Unholy and the Frost cards now for Death Knight. It's just time now for the Blood cards. Again, a few of these were revealed in the initial announcement, but we're going to find out what all of the cards are at this point. Be starting, of course, with the 1 Blood Rune cards. And the first one here, Heart Strike, 1 mana spell, deal 3 damage to a minion. If that kills it, gain a corpse. 1 mana, dealing 3 damage. Upside if you kill the minion, but still, even 3 damage to a minion for 1. Not terrible, not terrible. Potential upside seems pretty decent. We have Dark Fallen Neophytes, 3 mana, 2/5 undead. Battlecry, spend 2 corpses to give all minions in your hand +2 attack. So some hand buff. We've seen this, very interesting. We've seen this in other classes, right? Particularly Paladin. But, I mean, you're probably already going, if you're leaning into corpses and stuff, you probably already have a decent amount of minions. And, I mean, even hitting 2 or 3 minions with +2 attack, probably pretty good. Just think about a second copy of like Dark Fallen Neophyte becomes a 4/5 for 3 with that Battlecry. Yeah, this actually, the more I think about it, I think I like this a lot more than some of the other hand buff stuff we've seen in the past. I like that a lot. Next up, we have a weapon, Soulbreaker, 3 mana, 3 attack, 2 durability. After your hero attacks and kills a minion, gain 2 corpses. That's pretty solid, honestly. Gaining corpses for doing stuff. If you don't kill the minion, you're not going to get the corpses, but I'm sure there's probably some weapon buffs that you can use to make that even better. 4 mana Death Strike. It's a spell with Lifesteal. Deal 6 damage to a minion. There is the Lifesteal. I was kind of wondering, their initial description of Blood was like big minions, board clearing, healing. So I'm wondering how they're going to do all that, but I guess, dealing 6 to a minion with Lifesteal added on to that at the same time, that's one way to do it for sure. That seems really good, especially only for 1 rune. You can fit that into a variety of the Death Knight decks. So next up, we have Gnome Muncher, 6 mana, 5/6 undead with taunt and lifesteal. At the end of your turn, attack the lowest health enemy. Again, more end of turn effects. This is really interesting. We've seen end of turn effects. I'm thinking things like the Colossal, the Priest Colossal, that has the effect. One of the enemy minions attacks that at the end of the turn. So, okay, this is kind of similar. I think you're probably getting value unless your opponent has really big stuff on the board and then that dies, but you're getting to keep a taunt afterwards. Noxious Cadaver, a 1 mana, 1/2 undead with a battle cry. Deal 2 damage to an enemy and your hero. I think so far, even just with the other couple of cards that we've seen that have lifesteal potential, dealing damage, a couple of damage to your own face probably is not going to be that detrimental. Plus the fact that this is only 1 mana, it's an undead, so it can have some synergies, and when this dies, it'll give you a corpse, so it has that kind of synergy. This seems okay. This seems okay. Especially if it's kind of an aggressive meta and there's a lot of small minions on the other side of the board. Next up, we have Vicious Bloodworm, a 2 mana, 3/2 beast. Battle cry, give a minion in your hand attack equal to this minion's attack. So this kind of works with that other minion that we saw earlier of, spending some corpses and buffing your hand. Not terrible. I don't know if I like this as much as the other one. I mean, okay, so even if you get that buff, I guess you're getting multiple buffs, because then let's say you buffed this in your hand with that 2 attack earlier. Then you play this, so it's a 5 attack, and then you give another minion 5 attack again. This body in itself, I feel like is just kind of it's like a middleman type effect. And it's just got such low health that it's going to be really easy to kill off. I don't think I like this all that much. I guess it's a beast, so like maybe you can work with that somehow. Then we have the Bone Guard Commander, an 8 mana 8/8 undead with taunt. Battle Cry, raise up to 6 corpses as 1/2 risen footmen with taunt. Again, we've kind of seen similar effects, having this battle cry of putting this body and then having other bodies that kind of come along with it. That's also with taunt, I guess. That this seems fine. I don't know how many people will include something like this automatically in their decks, but it might prove to be good just because of all of the stats that it brings with it. Then we see Obliterate. Again, I think this was one that was shown in the IGN article previously. So 2 mana, Obliterate, destroy a minion. Your hero takes damage equal to its health. Seems reasonable. Yeah, we've kind of seen this before. This is the one of those original Death Knight cards that are coming back and staying as a playable Death Knight card. Yeah, it's pretty flexible, and honestly, I think having this as a blood, now that we've seen some other cards in this blood set, even so far, just in the 1 Blood Rune required cards, that give you some healing with that lifesteal, this actually seems like it is way better. So that actually seems really good. And Patchwork, we already have seen Patchwork as well. It was revealed at the beginning. 7 mana, 4/6 undead. Battlecry, destroy a random minion in your opponent's hand, deck, and battlefield. I really don't know how to feel about this yet because this does seem like a very powerful effect. We've already had some disruption in the game, and whatever side of the fence you're on with loving or hating disruption, this is just another tool, but at the same time, it's 7. And unlike something like Mutinous, it's not getting the stats of those minions. If there's nothing in hand or like on the battlefields, you're not going to get that part of the effect. And also, because it does have this 1 Blood Rune requirement, if you're playing like a triple Frost or triple Unholy deck, you cannot play this in those. So it might not be included in as many decks. So it's kind of interesting. I'm really intrigued where we're going to see this card. Okay, and moving into our 2 rune cards, we have Asphyxiate, 3 mana shadow spell, destroy the highest attack enemy minion. So again, just some kind of removal. This is also interesting with the highest attack. So, you know, if there is something that maybe is like a 5/4, it's going to get cleared. I think the highest attack itself target is pretty cool. So I really like this one. I think this one's probably going to see some play there, but does have that 2 rune requirement. Then we have Corpse Explosion, which I think we also did see during that initial reveal. 5 mana shadow spell. Detonate a corpse to deal 1 damage to all minions. If any are still alive, repeat this. So again, pretty powerful effect there. You do also have to have the corpses, and there has to be bodies on board. So I think, you know, this is kind of limited by the amount of corpses you have versus other cards that we've kind of seen like this, like Defile or the Arcanist that kind of has that Defile effect with the body. So pretty interesting. I think there's probably still going to be enough corpse usage and generation that you can probably get this off 3 times, I would say, probably on average, just like before we're playing anything. That's what I'm kind of expecting, is like 3 to 4 corpses on average for many of these effects. Doesn't seem terrible. Another weapon here, Corrupted Ashbringer. Yes, I love that. This is a 6 mana, 5 attack, 2 durability with lifesteal. That feels really, really strong to me. It is the 6 mana, and it does have that 2 rune requirement. So yeah, this is cool. And if you did check out the video that I did on if every class were to have a rune system like this, when I was creating some custom cards for every class, I think this one, I didn't have the lifesteal effect, but this type of like higher attack and maybe a little bit more costly is kind of interesting. If this weapon ends up being really powerful and they have to nerf it, I think there is a possibility of playing around with the mana and or the rune cost here. If it's too powerful, they can keep it at 6, but maybe they make it 3 blood runes required. And that's just another level of like balance that they can add in, which I think is really, really cool. They could change the mana cost or the attack or durability like they've done in the past, but just adds another layer. And yeah, that corrupted Ashbringer seems really cool. Next up, we have Blood Boil, 5 mana shadow spell with lifesteal. Infect all enemy minions. At the end of your turns, they take 2 damage. So you're getting that lifesteal effect. You're infecting enemy minions. And at the end of your turn, so you'll get this guaranteed at least once, right? The turn you play this, whatever minions they have on the board, they take 2 damage. But with this having lifesteal and it affecting all of the enemy minions, the more minions they have on board, the more life you are going to gain. So kind of interesting on when you want to play this. And I don't know. I feel like this one might not see play in like every blood deck. Maybe initially until there's more cards. But this one is one that might be included now and then kind of start to fade out a little bit, or come in when there's a much more like aggressive type of meta and more more minions on the board. But you probably don't want to be playing this for like 2 bodies unless you absolutely have to. I don't know. Really interesting card. I'm not as super excited about that one. Habit Surge. A 2 mana 2/3 minion with Battle Cry. Spend a corpse to discover a Blood Rune card. We've already seen one of these for each of the blood, or like each of the rune types. So this is the blood one, discovering a Blood Rune specific card. I've already talked about that in the previous 2 videos, but I like that effect a lot. I think it's really, really cool. This one, you do have to spend the corpse to get it, but honestly, it doesn't seem like it's that huge of a requirement. I feel like this has a lot of good things going for it, and I would imagine if you're playing a double or triple blood deck, you probably put this in. Seems well-rounded. Then we have Blood Tap, a 2 mana shadow spell. Give all minions in your hand +1/+1. So again, a little bit more of that hand buff. Spend 3 corpses to give them +1/+1 more. So the 3 corpses sound slightly heavy, but honestly, I really like this. If you were going for corpses and stuff, I don't know. I've never been like the hugest fan of hand buff stuff, but giving the minions in your hand +1/+1 and then a potential upside of doing it again seems really good. And only for 2 mana, I think, is the benefit there. You're always going to be able to play this for the 2 mana and a +1/+1 buff at minimum. So that's not bad at all. And I think especially with all of the minions that have lifesteal, +1/+1 might be worth it. And moving into our triple Blood Rune cards, we have Soulstealer. 8 mana 5/5 undead. Battle Cry, destroy all other minions. All other minions. Gain 1 corpse for each enemy destroyed. So this one is really interesting. It is pretty costly with that 8 mana. It's not like the greatest body with 5/5, but you are destroying all minions, which will destroy yours as well. and gaining corpses for each enemy destroyed. So this one, though, depending on the board state, what you're seeing, this one might still be pretty powerful. If your opponent is playing a couple of really big bodies, you just need to have some removal and then put a body on the board. This does it. This does it for you. I feel like we've seen kind of similar effects, but also the fact that there are some, some cards that we're seeing that you kind of need to play for corpse generation as well. I kind of like it. I think this one, I don't know. It's also got the undead tag, so it does feel like there's some good stuff. The downside, of course, is that it kills your other minions, and it's only got 5/5 worth of stats, but overall, I mean, a board removal with a body never seems terrible. Vampiric Blood. Again, this is one that we saw in the initial release, but 2-mana spell. Give your hero +5 health. Spend 3 corpses to gain 5 more and draw a card. I think this one is pretty dang good. You're always going to get 5 health, and spending the 3 corpses. Again, I feel like 3 corpses is going to be actually pretty reasonable based on what we're seeing. There's a decent amount of minions. I think the 3 corpses is going to be pretty easy for a lot of these decks to fulfill that requirement for. So being able to basically heal for 10 and draw a card seems kind of nutty, especially because it only costs 2. Yes, you have to play it in a triple blood deck, but that still seems really good to me. I think it's very strong. Now, this card here, Alexandrias Maw, is showing here as a 7-mana 3/7. But if we look at their initial Twitter post here, they did actually reply to it saying that the correct stats are a 7-mana 7/7. So it's not a 3/7. Which, honestly, for this effect, I'm fine with it being a 3/7, but no, it's actually a 7/7. So let's get back to that here and look at this. So, Alexandrias Maw, 7-mana 7/7 undead. Battlecry for the rest of the game. Deal 3 damage to your opponent at the end of your turns. This seems so nutty to me. I don't know. There's you get a good body, it's an undead, it's gonna deal 3 damage for the rest of the game at the end of your turns. Your opponent can't. There's no counterplay to that. I guess unless you're just never getting to play this as a battle cry. That's the only counterplay. But this card seems like one that your opponent will want to be playing Disruption for. I don't know if this is completely game ending. Dealing 3, at the end of each of your turns. By this time, I mean, depending on how the decks are built, some aggressive or really big bodied minion type decks might be able to just beat you down before this actually gets value to deal all that damage. But still, an additional 3 damage that they can't do anything about at the end of your turns seems pretty impactful and something that they will have to consider. And again, this being a 7/7, not a 3/7, as they stated are the correct stats, blows my mind, honestly. A 7/7, pretty strong. Yeah, pretty strong. Now, this next card, this legendary, revealed by Screen Rant. And I'll link their little Twitter post where you can see this clip and get the link to where they talk about it more in the description here. But it is Deathbringer Sauraphang. We get to see it in action here. And as if we go back and pause it there, it is Deathbringer Sauraphang, a 5-mana 2 Blood Rune card with a 3/5 stat line. He is undead. He has Taunt and a Death Rattle. Return this to your hand it costs health instead of mana. So we can kind of watch this play out here. So, you know, 5 mana for a 3/5 body, not like the greatest. It has taunt. We've kind of seen taunts that have that stat line, but this Death Rattle, very, very interesting here. So the Death Rattle is going to put it back in your hand, and then it's going to cost health, right? So pretty interesting. It did add that corpse counter as well for dying. So that seems fantastic. Then you can play it. And again, with the fact that this is a blood kind of required card, there is a lot in the blood cards that we've seen that also have lifesteal. So it doesn't actually seem to me really like taking this 5 health to play this body is that big of a detriment. It might be in some games, I guess, but again, depending on what the meta looks like, having the taunt on its own might still be pretty good. And if you have enough lifesteal effects, then we've already seen as well some hand buff type of things. So being able to potentially play something while this is in your hand, get some buffs on it, replay it then, and, you know, get a bigger body after you play it for health require, you know, 5 health. Sure. This is very, very interesting. I think this seems like a pretty neat card. I don't know how much people will play it or not. All right, well, that is it for the Blood Death Knight cards. I don't know. What do you think down below? And now these are all of the Death Knight cards. I believe they gave them to us all kind of together. So now we have taken a look at the kind of base Death Knight cards. We've seen the Frost a few days ago, Unholy, and now these Blood cards. Let me know, which one are you most excited to see? And I am pretty excited. I don't know. I think personally, I'm still hyped for the Frost Death Knight cards myself, but I'm pretty excited for these. And if you haven't already, please check out that video that I mentioned earlier, where I did actually kind of take this rune idea and put that into all of the classes, designed some of my own cards, and kind of talked about that process and how I went about that in this video here.